The UK is currently in flames because of riots breaking out all over the land, similar to the 2020 Summer of Love here in America. Tensions came to a boiling point after 3 young girls doing a yoga Taylor Swift event were deleted by an alleged Muslim immigrant. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, with the natives snapping and lashing out towards Muslim immigrants in an attempt to reclaim their traditions, culture, and faith. In this video, we're going to analyze and try and get to the bare bones of what's going on from an outside yet Christian perspective. Is this a long time overdue attempt for the people in the UK to bring back Christianity so that the UK does not become rampant by Sharia law? Or is this the far-right fascism coming to the surface and or hijacking the situation? Well, as you can imagine, there's actually a major twist to this entire story that may sway how you and I look at it. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan, and this channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. And this topic is near and dear to my heart because as a child growing up in Azerbaijan and being Armenian, I had to flee religious persecution and come to the United States as a refugee. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, as a huge percentage of the people that watch this channel, unfortunately, are not subscribed. All right, let's get into the video. Okay, the situation in the UK is getting crazy. There is their version of the 2020 Summer of Love, but this time it's folks who are apparently on the native right end of the spectrum. I have a friend that's local who posted something about it that we're going to get into. Let's see if we could just get to whatever the bare bones facts of what did or didn't happen, okay? Far-right anti-immigration riots break out across the UK. That's what this is titled, okay? So let's look at it and let's see if there's any validity to the things that people are protesting. Go ahead.
Tonight, violence and vitriol on the streets of the United Kingdom, targeting migrants and mosques in an ugly eruption of anti-immigrant sentiment. For more than a week, riots breaking out in city after city, cars torched in northeast England, fires raging in Belfast in Northern Ireland. This hotel, used to house asylum seekers, set ablaze.
They are protesting their immigration policy. I don't want to go down the conspiracy route of immigration, but from what I understand, a lot of these countries can't maintain their birth rates. Because they can't maintain their birth rates, they open up the doors to immigrants to come in, some of which come in legally, some of which come in illegally. Why? Because they need to keep their populations up or their population collapses. Okay.
That's crazy.
So that's one of the reasons why countries are opening up to other people. Okay. And this has been happening in the UK. There's thousands of mosques being built right now and churches shutting down, which is guys like Richard Dawkins goes on to say, I'm a cultural Christian because I don't like churches being turned down. Well, you kind of caused all the nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So immigration, this is the same thing happening here. What's happening here? In America, there are people coming over the border, and one of the biggest policies that Biden changed, which, by the way, I disagree Trump on him wanting to overturn DACA, but one of the things that Biden changed on day one was catch and release here. People who are coming over illegally, catching and release here versus catch and release over in Mexico.
Yeah.
So you catch and release here, you give them a ticket, come back in 8 months to see a hearing about an asylum. You're asylum seeking. That's a complete mess, right? So the similar thing is happening there. Is that a reason? Is that a reasonable reason for people to be mad? Right. It is. I think it is. I think if there seems to be this bizarre globalist thing happening, whether it's because of incompetence or whether it's because of a malicious intent, we don't know, right? Are they looking the other way because they know their populations are going to dip, so they're allowing more people in? The issue is these people don't synthesize well and don't assimilate well with the Christian influence culture in America and also the UK, right?
You know, I think the big problem is with that Biden policy.
What's that?
Is that I think Americans just like a good competition, and there's a level to like illegal immigration where it's like I don't think you should do it, but if you pull it off and you don't get caught, welcome.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when you get caught and it's like you didn't even have to try. We're just there's no stakes in it.
Yeah.
You know?
More than 400 arrests so far, including nearly 150 just this weekend. Police warning the number will rise.
I can confirm today we have seen at least 12 of our officers injured, with items such as brick fence posts, branches and other missiles thrown at them.
Authorities blaming much of the violence on far-right extremist groups, some with neo ties. Prime Minister Keir Starmer on the job only a month, vowing to deploy the full force of the law.
Whatever the apparent motivation, this is not protest. It is pure violence, and we will not tolerate attacks on mosques or our Muslim communities.
You could feel however you want to feel about Islam as a religion. You shouldn't be attacking mosques You shouldn't be attacking churches. That's not okay. That's the line between like, hey, national borders are good. We shouldn't let anyone come over here. Versus, oh, and we're gonna attack the mosques, fam. That's to me, that's the line between conservative right and far right.
Yeah. I also think, because I think the conservative right is the idea that, hey, we don't like the policies that is allowing this to happen. But that far right is like, oh, we're going to take it out on the individuals. Because the Muslim population is just following the rules. Hey, we got invited. We had incentive. We're moving there. Yeah. You know, we're saving your population. Yeah. You need us to pay taxes. And so then the attacks on the individual is not the helpful part because, one, it's just wrong as Christians. It's wrong. Yep. But then two, it doesn't solve anything. It's not actually, like, if anything, you're just mad at your own country. You're not mad at them.
100%. And by the way, this is the exact same thing that happened in the 2020 Summer of Love, where people on the right were saying the same thing we're saying now. Yep. And people on the left were like, but you don't understand. People are fed up. They've seen this and this and this. And you try to justify, but the reality is that, fam, rioting is not okay. Now we're going to get to this concept of the story of this girl potentially getting stabbed and whatever happened there. We're going to look at that, right? In a second. But when this was inverted, it sounds like a lot of you bozos that are co-signing this had an issue with the BLM situation, and the people who didn't have any issues with the BLM situation have an issue with this. Got to have just scales. Either rioting is always wrong, and burning down mosques and churches is always wrong, and burning down public property and hurting police officers is always wrong, or it's not. You can't cape for your side. You cannot do that. You can't be like, oh, it's cool. It's cool when you're doing it against the Muslims, but when you're doing it right, no. This is where you get delusional and checked out from the humanity that we are to have in terms of how we are to deal with neighbor, right? Remember, Jesus said that you are to love your neighbor as yourself. Rioting and hurting people, that yes, I disagree with their ideology and their worldview, but that doesn't mean that you go and burn down their mosques and that's a vibe because the far right is good. Like, no, it's wrong, period. Condemn it outright, period, always.
Living in fear.
Muslim people, we're not terrorists. That's how I feel like. I feel like we're being threatened. It's not safe.
Amid the chaos, counter-protesters pushing back.
I never said that Christians were attacking mosques. I said if you're okay with anyone attacking a mosque, you're not behaving like a Christian. Does that make sense? You're out of your mind if you think that that's okay to co-sign as a Christian. It doesn't matter if that's how they treat us in Islamic countries. That's not the gospel, fam. Do you not understand what turn the other cheek and Father forgive us not for forgive them not for what they do and let vengeance be the Lord's.
Yep.
Like you can't ignore those passages because they do it to us.
The immediate trigger, the murder last week of 3 young girls in a horrific spree. In the hours after, far-right provocateurs posted disinformation on social media, claiming the suspect was an immigrant in the UK illegally. It went viral, but it wasn't true. Authorities say the suspect is a 17-year-old born in the UK.
So here's the root of it. The suspect is a UK native. I have a feeling that the suspect is a black kid. So black kid stabs 3 girls for whatever reason. We don't know why. Evil, murder. That's awful. That's a terrible tragedy. Yeah. So even if his parents are African and immigrants, that's not the same thing. 3 kids died. That's tragic. That's awful. You don't hijack that and say he was an illegal immigrant and then go and riot. You don't do that. Now I understand. I also understood why people were rioting here. I understand why people riot. I get it. Right? But that doesn't make it right. So his parents are from Rwanda. He's born in Wales. So the foundational narrative of this is false. He's 17. He's raised his whole life there. The right got to stop doing this. Christians got to stop doing this. We just went through this at the Olympics. Y'all got to stop doing this. You look goofy. You look stupid. Stop taking things and spinning them for your own political gain. Someone doing this is awful, evil, condemnable, period. But don't take this and then flip it and go, oh, well, it's the illegal immigrants. No. In the same way, how many people made a fool of themselves jumping out the window and saying that there was a trans fighter at the Olympics?
Yep.
Only to find out that likely from what we see is an intersex person. Not the same thing from a very conservative, very anti-LGBT country. Not the same thing. Stop taking things and hijacking them to fit your narrative, right? We as Christians are supposed to not have any falsehood come out of our mouth. And if you're co-signing falsehood, you're perpetuating it, right? And so they're saying that this kid could have been Christian. We'll look into the kid in a second.
Born in the UK.
And social media clearly put rocket boosters under some of the organisation, the inflaming of tensions, and also the misinformation. So we will be pursuing this with the social media companies.
But immigration has increasingly been a flashpoint in the UK, with huge numbers of asylum seekers arriving in small boats. How do you feel as a Brit when you see what's taking place in this country?
Ashamed. Ultimately, I think it's the one word, ashamed.
Yeah.
It's not how 99% of Britain feel. I think it's just a really small minority.
Tonight, with the cleanup underway, painful questions about what kind of a nation the UK wants to be. There are no signs that these riots are calming down. More protests expected tonight in Dublin and in Birmingham. But the UK government today announcing it will deploy a standing army of specialized police officers to respond. Prime Minister Starmer saying law enforcement will have whatever resources they need to bring this to an end.
17-year-old charged, yeah. And this kid this is awful. This is awful. Killing of 3 young girls shocked nation. Judge allows name of teenage suspect to be published. Knife attack sparked 2 nights of protest. False information spread online. So people are saying, like, oh, this is what broke the camel's back. London, a 17-year-old boy appeared in English court on Thursday charged with a 3-year-old girl in a knife attack at a summer dance class that has shocked the nation and sparked 2 nights of violence. Axel Rudubanka, they're saying he is from, what country is he from? Rwanda, I think. Incident at a Taylor Swift yoga and dance workshop, summer vacation event for children. So this doesn't fit the narrative. If this is true, which we don't know, this doesn't fit the narrative. Rudubankwa's Christian father and stay-at-home mother were described as ordinary and struggling to make a go of things here.
Source said that the family was heavily involved in the local church.
Neighbors in a cul-de-sac in Bongson said one could sometimes be heard singing in the family home and even appeared in a musical in the West End with school drama. A nearby resident who asked not to be named said, "It's a massive shock. He would come in from school and be singing. He never went out and we never saw them. We never spoke to them." A neighbor who lived close to the suspect in Bank said, all the time I have lived here, I've never spoken to the lad. I've never seen him on his own. I think I've probably only seen him 1 or 2 times. Very quiet. Dad would say hello and how are you? That sort of thing. Rubanko was born in Cardiff, and one neighbor from his former home in Welsh capital told the Mirror he was very quiet and introvert. He was quite clingy to his mum. I like how I say mum. While his older brother was more boisterous and would stick his tongue out at you. Police are patrolling. Appeared in court. Liverpool court said diagnosed with autism. It also heard unwilling to leave the house and communicate with family for a period. He was remanded to youth detention and will appear in next court. Yeah, this is awful. This is awful. But reacting this way only makes it worse. And by the way, this is from a friend of mine who's in London, who's a Christian, who's a conservative, the whole bit, right? You guys could check out his Instagram. This is not someone that's like a leftist. This is not someone that's a Muslim. This is not someone on any of that. He says, if you're a black immigrant in the UK, be careful. Don't join the protests. Stay indoors. If you can, work from home this week. I pray these cries come to an end. And read his caption. Black people in the UK, how are you? How's your area? Have you had any attacks? So what he's getting at, from my understanding, is that now just black UK citizens are catching strays.
It's like being Muslim on 9/12,
right?
2001,
right? Because they don't know if you've been there and your family's been there for generations, or if you're an immigrant.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like. And you have flat out misinformation and lies. This is the issue. From all measurable accounts, this kid was not an immigrant. His parents were, fair enough. He was not a Muslim. Maybe he had a Muslim name and he could be mistaken for a Muslim, or I don't know. Maybe he got radicalized online. Who knows? But that's not the same thing. Okay, so if you guys didn't know, the majority of our videos are made live on our daily streams. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Make sure the bell notifications are on so you don't miss any of that. But while we do the different topics that we're covering, we get a live chat. And usually Zach will set it up where there'll be, you have to be subscribed for a while before you can comment in the chat. And we were shocked by how many people were cool with rioting and burning down mosques. People who are subscribed to this channel, they were like, yeah, that's how they treat us, right? And it reminded me a lot of my friends who had perhaps experienced police brutality at some point in their life. And then when the 2020 situation happened here, they were okay with cities burning down and people getting robbed and destroyed and businesses being completely ravished. It was the same exact logic, because you feel like someone has sinned against you or is a part of a broader system that sinned against you. Therefore, all of God's laws are completely out of the window. Therefore, the ends justify the means. Therefore, because you feel like your situation is bad and you're entitled to better, you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, and disregard any standard of conduct as a follower of Jesus, or at the very least, co-sign conduct and cheer on conduct that you know is wrong. The scriptures encourage us to have just scales, meaning that we can't be partial to one thing or another, that we have to have right judgment when we're dealing with these things and not cape for a position we know is wrong because it fits our own narrative and presupposition. A lot of the situation in the UK, I understand and I get the tension. A lot of it has been happening here in America. I also understood my friends who had been victims of police brutality and experienced the mistreatment by law enforcement who should be there to protect and serve, feeling a certain way when these things hit the streets in America. But that doesn't mean that their frame was correct. It doesn't mean that the actions and the burning down of cities that were mostly peaceful were okay. Zach was joking with me about this video and said, we can't have a Sunday school takeaway. But I think a lot of this is quite simple, if I'm honest with you. This is a very basic takeaway. Romans 12:17-18 says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Listen to this verse where Paul clearly says, do not repay evil for evil. And this is them living under oppressive Roman occupation. And yet Paul is still saying that. Not only is he saying that, but he goes on to say in other letters that we should be praying for the leaders, that we should be praying for those who are in positions of power. Not because they're always right, but because in God's sovereignty and providence, he ultimately allows them to sit in those positions. Another very basic takeaway is what we see in Ephesians chapter 4, which we just covered with the entire Olympic debacle. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. When and if we feel that we've been wronged, it does not make it okay to spread falsehood. We still have to remain truthful. We still have to look at the facts. And we see this going completely off the rails in 2020. And unfortunately, from the looks of it, similar thing in UK. In closing, we're not promised comfort in darkness, but are called to be the light. That doesn't mean that you can't peacefully protest. That doesn't mean you can't civically engage. I actually think you should do all of those. But remember that you and I, if we're followers of Jesus, are called to be the light of the world. And if we're called to be the light of the world, we should act accordingly. And calling to be the light is exactly what shocked Joe Rogan when he heard a side of Christianity he had never engaged with before. If you want to see that video, check it out over here. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.